I was going to ask, what got you into this field? What inspired you to become a cinematographer? That's a long word.
Cinematographer, yeah.
Cinematographer.
That's a whole nother story. After I was in art school at Mass College of Art because I grew up in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I and I went in there and I didn't really, like every other teenager, you go to college because you were told you need to go to college, And this was during the Vietnam War, so it was a good thing to go to college during that time. Otherwise, you were drafted. And I started college when the college was still a deferment. Mm-hmm. By the time I'd finished college, it had no longer been deferment. They were drafting everybody. But that's a different story. But I just wasn't clicking with. I went to Mass Art and I wasn't clicking. I was a graphic arts major, painting major, and I literally was almost flunking out. And then I took a film class. Oh my God, my whole world turned upside down. It was the perfect thing for me because it was visual. It had photography. My dad was actually an Air Force photographer during World War II. So I had some kind of photographic sense, not a lot, but enough. But it all put everything together because there was an art form that was about imagery, but it was immediate. It was something that was textile. You could go out there and do stuff. I hated being in front of drawing. It was labor intensive, and I didn't like that kind of labor. I like the physical labor where you're out doing stuff. And it's funny how when something like that is so profound that changes your life, that it affects everything. So I was getting A's in math and all my core subjects, science, and I mean, it's funny how it completely flips your life around. So I was completely now academic, and I did great stuff, and I changed to University of Massachusetts, which at that time had a pretty good film program. And so I finished up there, and I had two choices. I could either go to New York, which was doing mostly at that time commercials or documentaries, and I wasn't interested in either one of those, or Los Angeles, which did all the narrative stuff, movies, TV, stuff like that. So I hitchhiked out to California after I graduated, landed in Burbank, got a job working in a portrait studio, and worked my way and met some people at a rental place, got to meet other people, had a couple of little breaks, worked doing electric work, worked as a grip, worked doing anything I could, did freebies at AFI, in which I made some great connections, which later turned out to be very, very important. And my big break, where I got to start not shooting, but working as a camera operator, was I worked on this movie called Roar, R-O-A-R. And Roar is infamous. It's the most dangerous film ever made. Are you familiar with Roar at all?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
So you have to look it up so I get hired because a friend of mine, this AFI friend, who I was the gaffer on he was an AFI fellow as a cinematographer. I gaffed his final project. And so he said, hey, listen, you know what? I'm working on this film, I'm working as a first assistant, I know, but I'm trying to get jobs as a DP myself, but got to start someplace. And they had this fantastic Dutch cinematographer over here. It's his first film he's shooting in America. He's like the hottest cinematographer in Europe, a guy named Jan de Bont. And he's over here shooting this movie, and I'm working as the first, and they're about ready to start running a B camera. And I thought, hey, you've been trying to get into the camera department forever. Do you want to come on? I can get you on as a second assistant camera on B camera. I said, are you kidding me? Absolutely, I'm there. He said, why don't you go over to Panavision, which is where they were getting the equipment, and go and learn how to load the camera and get familiar with all the pieces. So I went and spent 2 days at Panavision. The people were very nice there. And he said, you don't have to come till Friday. We're going to start running a B camera. So, and he tells me where it's like an hour north of Los Angeles. It's up in Soledad Canyon. Do you know where Soledad Canyon is?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So yes. Diana, how far away that is. So
yes.
I ended up making that trip for 4 years after that. But anyway, so I go up there and I'm approaching the place. And it's like there's this huge sort of valley and a big parking lot with all these cars, and there's a big barn there, and there's all these people and stuff like that. And there's this old ambulance with lights flashing, and I'm driving down in, right? And as I'm driving down in, I see this guy taking this elephant out of that barn. He's the elephant tender, and he's moving the elephant out. And as I come up, the lights are flashing, and everybody's kind of running around. People are getting in cars. They're driving away. So what the heck is going on? And I walk up, and I see my friend Steve Posey. He's there. Hey, quick. And so all right. So I walk in, and there's this like archway gate. It almost looks like you're entering Jurassic Park. It was like one of those gates, right? And I'm walking in, and as I'm walking in, they're carrying somebody out on a stretcher. And I'm looking at, and I hear this guy going, God, Steven, God, you start shooting tomorrow. For God's sakes, we don't stop shooting. I'm hearing this guy screaming and yelling. I said, who's that? He goes, all right. And as he starts to explain, I hear this sound going, woo, 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 woo. And there's like all these sounds. And I said, what is that sound? He goes, let me explain. So, wait, that sounds like lions. And he goes, all right. First of all, I said, oh, wait, who's that guy who walked? All right, well, that's our boss. Let me explain what happened. Those are lions, yes. And apparently he kind of got bit by a lioness.
Oh, no.
And so Jan Devon had his entire skull ripped, the skin on his skull completely ripped open. His scalp was like flopped down.
Oh
and
no.
He's screaming at Steve Posey saying, you're going to start shooting tomorrow. You got to keep shooting. As he's being carried up on a stretcher. And I go, what is going on here, Steve? What have you? And he said, all right, no, listen. All right. First of all, they want me to continue shooting tomorrow. I'm going to start DPing while Jan, whatever happens. He said, but everybody quit. So we don't have a camera department, but they want to keep shooting. So I'm going to start DPing. Do you want to be the first assistant? So now I've never really been in a camera team. I was hired to be second assistant on B camera. Now he's asking me to be the first assistant on the main camera.
Oh my gosh.
And I go, yeah, absolutely.
Why not? Jump right into it.
Absolutely. I jumped in. And so for 4 years, I worked on that movie. And I'll tell you what that movie gave me. That movie, it got me in the union. Mm-hmm. I started working that was in November, and by December we had lost all the foliage in the trees, and so the movie was put on hiatus, and we were going to start up again in the following April, when the trees came back and all that. And this happened for 4 years because there's all sorts of disasters, and the script kept on changing. And as you can imagine, with big cats, they never do anything you want them to do after they've done it once. Once the cats have figured out what you want them to do, they don't do it anymore. Just like a house cat. There's no difference between a house cat and a lion or a tiger. They act the same way, the same thing. And so the cats would do some incredible thing that completely was not in the script. No matter how much we tried to get them to do, they did something else which was great. Oh, that's great. All right, well, listen, we're going to change the script. So literally this went on for 4 years. So when we came back that next year, we started running a B camera all the time. So I started operating. Jan had me start operating. Steve didn't come back. Steve Posey, my friend, he didn't come back, but I did. And so because it was a certain setup with the union, where if you worked 30 days within this open period, because there was this big civil action lawsuit against the union at that time, because nobody could get into the union in those days. You either were the son or a son of somebody or the friend of the son of somebody. That's the only way you get. If you were a woman or a black person, forget about it. Nobody was, except for a few tokens. Hey, listen, the industry was different back then. Okay, it was just a different industry. Okay?
I'm sure
it was very nepotistic, and everybody knows what it's like. And if you didn't know, all you have to do is ask a few people. That's just the way it was.